Outputting our coverage. It's what we do.
That's all we do every Thursday
At 5:30.
College football. College football.
Mountain West Conference.
Doesn't matter.
SEC
Is all that matters.
Nick Saban
Is crazy.
Yeah.
And that's all.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back into the Outputting Our Coverage show. After our bye week, midway through the season, we are back. Got lots to talk about this week, David. Lots of interesting things transpiring across the college football landscape. But first, big news, some finality coming out this week in regards to the new college football playoff, colloquially known as the College Football Playoff.
Such a great naming committee that we have there.
They announced the committee. We've been wondering about this for a long time. We talked about it on the show multiple times, way back, even last year. Who the heck are they going to get to be on this selection committee?
Well, and before we get into who's on it, I just want to reemphasize my stance that I think the committee is a terrible idea.
Oh, I agree. I was kind of back and forth at first, but the more I think about it, and especially now that I see who's on it, and we'll talk about that in a second, I agree. Committee's a terrible idea. It's not going to be fair, and the one prediction I can positively for sure make is within 3 to 4 years after this starts, it's going to get expanded to 8 teams. I just guaranteed.
Well, and then they're going to expand on how many people they have in the committee, which is going to make it worse. I mean, they were so close to a perfect system. Leave the BCS rankings like they are. Take the top 4.
I agree. If you're going to take 4, keep the BCS rankings. I think once they get to 8 teams, I can live with the committee then. If you're taking 8 teams, you're going to pick whoever the best team is. It's going to happen. But 4 teams, I don't know. I'm
going to predict with the 4 teams, in one of the 3 years, you're going to have a major controversy.
No, I agree with that.
If you bump it to 8, you will have a major controversy every single year.
Well, yeah, but if you bump it to 8, you'll have a controversy. But I think if you're not up there in the top 8 or so, you don't have any business being in the national championship.
Unless maybe you're 9.
Yeah, but I don't think you're going to find 9 teams in a single year that are deserving of a real legitimate shot at the championship.
I don't think you're going to find 5 teams that are deserving of a shot.
I think you could find 5. I don't think you can find 9.
This year.
I think a lot of years you... Well,
I think even the year Auburn got snubbed out of the national championship, there were 3 teams legitimately with an argument. There were not 4, there were not 5, there were 3.
Yeah, I can see that, but I don't know. I think you could find 5... Maybe once every 5-6 years.
I think that's a blue moon situation.
But anyway, regardless of that, let's run through the list of who's on the committee here.
All right.
The chairperson is going to be Jeff Long, who's the athletics director at Arkansas.
Which, no controversy there. Arkansas will never get there, so he won't have to worry about that.
Not a conflict of interest. The next guy, Barry Alvarez, athletics director at Wisconsin. Next guy, Lieutenant General Mike Gould. Or Gold, I'm not sure how you pronounce that. Former superintendent, I guess that's the guy in charge of the Air Force Academy.
Right.
Pat Hayden, athletics director, who also enjoys moonlighting as a professional firer at 3 a.m.
Which is nice.
Tom Jernstead, former NCAA executive vice president. Oliver Luck, father of Andrew Luck, who is the athletics director at West Virginia. Archie Manning, who needs no introduction. Tom Osborne, former coach at Nebraska. Dan Radakovich, athletics director at Clemson, who was formerly athletics director at Georgia Tech. Mike Tranghese, the former commissioner of the Big East when it was still a thing.
Who has the best professional photo of all time out there on Google. Just go Google his name. It's pretty impressive.
Steve Weiberg, a former reporter for USA Today. Tyrone Willingham, who's gotten fired from more jobs than he knows what to do with.
Right.
And, of course, last but not least, the lone woman on
firecracker.
The committee. Yeah, Condoleezza Rice, not Pat Dye's favorite selection. She'll be on the committee as well. So, David, first impressions from this list.
First impressions for me, there should be no active athletic directors on the list.
I
think
agree.
that's a terrible idea.
I agree with
You're
that.
just asking for conflict at that point.
I agree.
Outside of that, I think they did a pretty good job. The bigger head scratch to me outside of, I don't mind Condoleezza Rice. I get it. She likes sports. She's very intelligent. Been in a controversial seat before. I don't mind that pick. The one I don't like is, why in the world do you have Tyrone Willingham?
That's
of all the
stupid.
ex-coaches you could have gotten, why him? I mean, is it because you needed a black guy?
I don't know.
I mean, that just to me that looks
Yeah.
like you're trying to get a token.
It does kind of look that way. I mean, you could look at it maybe from a different perspective of maybe you're looking for a guy who's perceived as having a lot of integrity and, to me, he seems like a guy who's not really going to disagree with you a whole lot.
Do you know what Tyrone Willingham does right now?
He's a coach somewhere, isn't he?
He works as a volunteer assistant for the Stanford women's golf team.
Oh, wow. That's a fall there,
That's a
David.
heck of a fall.
The thing that sticks out to me about this is this committee's going to look out for the big boys.
Oh, definitely.
You don't see any representatives on there of smaller schools.
Not at all.
I mean, maybe you could say the Air Force Academy, okay, but
No, that
not
doesn't
really.
count, no.
I mean, you don't have anybody who's going to stick up for the Boise States of the world, or
Nor should they, I think.
nah, I don't know. I think you need a different voice in there. The thing I'm concerned about with this committee, and the thing I've been concerned about, is history and tradition and people's perceptions are going to ruin this.
Oh, definitely.
And some of my biases are going to show through here, and I'll make no apologies for that. But I have a feeling that the committee with this makeup, if you have an Alabama team that has 2 losses, and then say, maybe
Ohio State with none.
well, not even that, but I'm saying like an Alabama team with 2 losses, and say Louisville may not be the best example, but a team of that ilk that's
Okay.
undefeated, they're going to scratch Louisville every time. They're going to go with Alabama. These guys are big school athletic directors.
I don't know about 2 losses, but
I don't know, man. If they look good and people have that perception that, oh, Alabama's a great team, they lost 2 really close games, Saban's a great coach, they deserve to be
I
in
think
there.
you would also do the same thing with LSU with 2 losses if
No, I'm
they
not
were the
s-
best SEC
I'm not
team.
saying it's
Right.
just Alabama.
But at the
I
same
think-
time, you can make an argument for that because
Yeah.
Louisville has not played anybody.
It's true.
They're a victim of their own schedule. Ohio State could possibly get jumped by any major conference team with 1 loss because they haven't played anybody.
But that's just the point. I mean, you could easily see yourself in a scenario where you've got a couple other undefeated teams. You have an undefeated team like Louisville that's sitting there at maybe 4th or 5th in that range, and then maybe you have the SEC champion who has got 2 losses. I can almost guarantee you that this committee is going to take the SEC champion over that undefeated Louisville team every time.
Well, it brings up a great question that is a little off topic, but does undefeated outweigh your schedule?
I don't know, and that's a good question, but I'm not sure that's a question we should let a committee decide. I would rather that kind of decision be based on numbers.
Okay,
But maybe that's just the personality I have.
I'm fine with
I
that,
don't know.
but at the same time, numbers are not unbiased. I mean, you still have
That's
people
true. It's
creating
based on
algorithms,
polls.
so they have to.
Right, but you're going to get some more dilution because you're basing your poll numbers on a larger, or you're basing your formula on a much wider spread of polls. So rather than just having 13 individuals with their opinions, you're talking about hundreds and hundreds of individuals
And
with their opinions.
it depends on how you do it, but the BCS, for the most part, the computer ranking systems are done by 12 different individuals who
Right.
weight different things how they think they should be weighted.
Right. And I think that's fine. It's statistics. Everything is going to regress basically to a normal distribution if you're taking all these things and packing them into a single metric. And
Yeah.
I-
Now,
that's-
you know the greatest way to lie? Use statistics.
well, you can make that argument too. I understand that, but I just have a lot of reservations about a committee making those types of decisions.
You and I are on the same page there. I don't like the committee.
I think there's going to be some serious issues with that the first couple of years.
I can agree with that.
I don't know, the undefeated versus couple of losses thing. That's a discussion for another day, and that's really, it's a chicken and egg thing. It's one of the things that makes college football great is that there is no answer to that.
You're always going to have the debate.
Right. And, you can almost make a case, and this is sort of the way that I feel, that, in the NFL, you get a champion every year, but a lot of years, I don't know really what that means. I mean, you get a team that goes through the playoff and wins. Does that really mean that they're the best team?
Yes. It does not mean that they were the best team all season or that they had the best skill players, but they are the champions of that league. They are, by definition, the best team from that league that whole year.
Yeah, and see, I guess if that's the frame of reference you're looking at it from, that's great. I mean, that's what the goal is. But part of the thing about college football that I like so much is, every week really does make a huge difference. And if you start focusing more on the end, that the only thing that matters is getting into the playoff and winning the playoff, the regular season is devalued. And
we still got to be in the top 4 until they start expanding it. I don't think it's devalued that much.
I don't know.
I would compare that the same as, say you're a lower conference team and you play a big boy. You only lost by 3 and you had a chance at the end. Do you take the moral victory, or would you have wanted to win? I mean, it's the same thing at the end of the year. Yeah, you had a great regular season, but you didn't win the Super Bowl. You might have been the best team during the season, but you didn't come home with a ring.
Yeah, you gotta finish. I don't know. There's a lot of philosophical questions here at play about what makes college football special, and you got to be real careful not to dilute that too much.
Oh, definitely. But what's so difficult is college football is so special to so many people in a bunch of different reasons.
Right. No, I agree. And I think, at the end of the day, with there being as many college football teams as there are, it's never going to be fair. Just the scheduling, you're not all playing the same people. It's just not going to be fair.
You can't make a fair system.
Right.
But it's modeled after life, and life isn't fair.
Can try.
Yeah.
That's the best we can do. We're going to try to take a quick break here. We'll be back on the other side. Got some SEC matchups, as always, to discuss here on Outputting Our Coverage. Stick around. We'll be right back.
It's time for SEC preview. SEC Big 10, Big 12, 12 can't count. SEC college football robber barons. SEC, yeah, they're big, they're fast, they're strong. And Missouri and Texas A&M as well. Yeah, SEC preview. Here we go.
All right, welcome back to Outputting Our Coverage. Not a whole lot of news or recap to report from either Auburn or Alabama last weekend. Alabama didn't quite dominate the first half, but they turned on the Jets when they needed to.
Oh, definitely. The first quarter was just a long series of drops and fumbles. And eventually, once they stopped doing that, they crushed Kentucky.
And that was always going to be the toughest part of this month for Alabama, was just getting dialed in and staying focused against an inferior schedule.
They have a very weak schedule this year. I mean, there are maybe only 2 or 3 tests on their schedule. So,
and in particular this month, there's really, you got Arkansas this week. We'll talk about that in a second. Who's the week after Arkansas?
Arkansas, then you have Tennessee.
Yeah, and that's looking like maybe a little bit more of a game now, but still not really.
Yeah.
So.
And then you have a week off before you play LSU.
Right. So Auburn, of course, played Western Carolina, beat them like they should have. Really the only interesting part of that was seeing Jeremy Johnson play for the first time. We were going to debate that last week on the show of whether or not that was a good move. Kind of a moot point now. I think it's a good move to go ahead and get him some game experience before you need him in a critical situation. But
if that's your plan,
there's a downside for that. Like it or not, you do have a controversy at quarterback now. As much as you want to try to downplay it, the first time things go a little bit south for Nick Marshall, which maybe that happens this weekend, your players are going to start thinking about it. You're going to start thinking about it in the back of your head, man, he looked pretty good. I know it's just Western Carolina, but maybe we should give him a shot. And when you start messing with the players' psyches like that, you got a controversy.
Yeah, just look at Frazier.
Yeah,
who is now the safety.
You got to be. That's a case in point right there. You got to be real careful about that. Let's go ahead and talk Auburn, Texas A&M here.
All right.
Pretty big matchup this weekend.
I know we kind of disagree on how this is going to go, but
we may disagree. Like I said before the show, I'm not really sure what my pick is on this yet. I'm actually going to take the lazy route and talk it through on air with our listeners before I make my decision.
Now I can sign you in real quick so you can make the pick live.
Well, that's we're going to hold that out for a super special show when our ratings get really low, and then we'll start pulling out those kind of stops.
Okay.
But basically, at this point, you could still conceivably make a case that whoever wins this game, well, at least Auburn, I believe, if they win this game, can't. Well, I guess neither team can quite control their own destiny to the SEC championship.
Because, Alabama still controls that.
Right. But a must-win game for both of these teams if they want to even be in the conversation about the SEC championship.
They've got to win this one.
Texas A&M had a tough game against Ole Miss last week, as Johnny Manziel tends to do. Made the comeback he needed to.
He might be a jerk and people might hate him, but that guy can play football.
He's really unstoppable, is kind of what it boils down to. Ole Miss had some success, just like everybody else has, particularly running the football against Texas A&M. Really didn't have any issues there, but you just can't let off the gas when you're playing against Texas A&M, and Ole Miss found that one out the hard way.
You have to score one more time than they do.
Right. That's really what it's going to come down to. So this game, Auburn and Texas A&M, is really going to come down to some matchups. I think regardless of who is at quarterback, I don't know that the Texas A&M defense, even if they stack the box, I don't think they're going to be able to stop Auburn's running game.
I can agree with that.
Auburn has been very successful running the football against pretty much everybody they've played this year. They've got 3 great running backs. The offensive line is probably one of the better units in the SEC right now, as crazy as it sounds to say that.
Well, it's really, we knew even last year when they were having all the problems, they were so young. If they could just get some consistency, get some experience, they've really turned out to be a great unit this year.
Yeah, so I think Auburn's not going to have problems running the football. The philosophical question becomes, does Gus abandon the hurry-up? Do you run the football and slow things down to keep Manziel off the field?
It's a good question.
I think that's something that Gus is going to struggle with. Because I know Chiswick did that to him a few times.
Yeah.
And I don't think he liked that.
Gus wants to run.
Yeah.
And I think really, if going into a game, you want your identity to shine through.
I agree, but if the circumstances dictate, I don't know. Maybe you have to change your approach a little bit. That's an interesting thing I'm going to be looking for.
I agree, but you can also look at take the NFL for example. You've got the New Orleans Saints going into New England 5-0. Their offense had looked great. They're a big spread it out pass, run and shoot, hurry up kind of system. They tried to kill the clock against New England. They were up by 3, and they ended up turning the ball over twice to New England, and on the last one, Tom Brady makes a crazy throw and beats him at the end. So it can come back and bite you.
Yeah. On the other side of the ball, there's really not any answers for Johnny Manziel. You can try to spy him, it won't work.
No.
Auburn's defensive line has improved, but I still don't think they're good enough to be able to contain him consistently. And they'll get him a couple times, but not consistently.
And this game's in A&M, right?
Right, it's at A&M.
So they're going to get away with a lot of holding.
Yeah,
I have seen that pretty consistently at their home games.
So I think you almost kind of have to chalk that up and game plan around that and say, you know what, Manziel's going to run on us. Let's see what we can do about taking away his passing game.
Right.
Let's see if we can do something there. And the big question for Auburn is going to be, how are they going to cover the wide receiver? What's that guy's
Mike
name?
Evans.
Mike Evans, yeah.
The giant on the outside.
Chris Davis, Auburn's best cornerback. He's back. He's healthy now. He's the key on that defense. If he can get some good coverage on Mike Evans, I think Auburn can win the game. But
although in the last couple games, Mike Evans hasn't done a ton. They've used their other receivers, and their running game has been a big part. Everybody forgets about that with A&M. They do have a great running game. Ben Molina has been tearing it up.
Another thing I want to throw into this, the weather. We saw what happened to Auburn at LSU when it rained.
Right.
The passing game is virtually non-existent. The running game was okay until a critical fumble that just kind of busted the confidence.
Yeah.
Chance of rain in Texas A&M. You wonder if that has the same effect against Auburn, or could the rain actually work in Auburn's favor, kind of neutralize Manziel a little bit, maybe help you out there. I don't know.
When they played Arkansas, it rained a pretty good deal, and it didn't slow him down a whole lot.
Yeah. So I don't know. Like I said, key matchups here. Auburn trying to run the ball. I think you have some success there. If Auburn can limit the passing opportunities, I think Auburn can win the game.
Okay, well, I'm going to ask you pretty straight up, how do you see this game going? You don't have to pick a winner. How do you see it turning out?
I think a score range, we're probably looking somewhere in the 30s for each team.
I could even see it more than that.
Maybe a little bit more than that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think probably somewhere in the high 30s. I think it's a close game. I don't see a blowout here. I don't see last year repeating itself. Mostly just because Texas A&M's defense is so bad.
Oh, and they are. They're terrible.
So I don't think you see a blowout there. As far as a prediction, though, I don't know. I just have this gut feeling, and this might be me getting swept up in the sunshine pumping.
Yeah.
It was bound to happen at some point.
Right.
But Texas A&M has had close calls week after week after week. At some point, you just can't pull it out anymore. If this was an Auburn, no-brainer for me. I'd pick Auburn to win. It being in Texas A&M makes it a little bit tougher.
Okay, well, I will take all criticism and knocks on the head next week if this does not turn out right. But here's how I see it. Auburn will score. You can't stop that. I mean, A&M's defense cannot stop that. So early on, I think it's a close game, but I think A&M's going to keep scoring. I think it's going to come down to eventually A&M will not only load up the box and maybe trip up some feet here and there, or Malzahn tries to shake it up, maybe do some play action. I think it's going to come down to one or two possessions on third down, needing a pass and it being overthrown and just not being able to get it, or one turnover where it just turns the game. And if you can't keep up that constant scoring frenzy from A&M, you can get buried like quicksand. So if I had to make a prediction, I think A&M by like 2 touchdowns.
Okay.
So we'll see what happens with that one.
I think Auburn's going to win. That's my prediction. But it's going to be close.
Okay.
Real
if you
close.
don't pick Auburn on the pick'ems, I'm going to come back and say something next week.
I'm going to pick them on the
Okay.
pick'em.
All right.
I'm going to do it.
Okay.
I don't know. Just it seems like maybe the stars are aligning here, but
that'd be a huge win for Auburn if they could pull it off.
It'd be a big win. I mean, Auburn needs this win to get back into the national conversation. Nobody's really talking about Auburn right now.
They're waiting to see about these kind of games.
Because a lot of the games, you're supposed to beat Mississippi. You're supposed to beat Mississippi State. You're not supposed to beat Texas A&M right now.
I don't know.
So,
I don't think a lot of people thought they'd beat Ole Miss. I
don't
was
think
a big game.
People didn't think that, but in a normal year, you should beat Ole Miss.
Definitely, but with a couple of Ole Miss losses, people are starting to get off the Ole Miss bandwagon.
Right. So I don't know. It'll be an interesting one to watch. Really, if you look at the rest of Auburn's schedule, though, it's crazy to think this, but if you beat Texas A&M, you got to go to Arkansas. Always tough for Auburn, but Arkansas, not a good team this year.
No.
You got to go to Tennessee. That's going to be a tough one, I think. At Tennessee, that one could go either way. Georgia's decimated with injuries.
They are.
That's winnable.
Can they get anybody back by then is the only thing you'd look at.
Yeah, that's a winnable game. Alabama, still a question mark, depending on how you play the rest of the season.
It depends on how they look against LSU.
Yeah, but it's conceivable that if Auburn wins this weekend, they could go into the Alabama game with one loss.
It's possible, yeah. Definitely.
That's crazy to think.
That is
based on last year.
That is crazy.
I've gotten some help from some of the other teams, injuries and things of that nature, but I don't know. Crazy to think. That's for sure.
We will find out.
Speaking of Alabama, they're playing Arkansas this weekend. South Carolina just drilled Arkansas last weekend. I have no reason to think things will be any different against Alabama. Are you ready to jump off of your Brett Bielema bandwagon?
No.
Yet?
I still think he's going to jump up and get somebody this year.
This year? Really?
Yeah, this year. He'll jump up and get somebody. But
think Auburn maybe would be the somebody? Or is that not enough of a somebody yet to get?
No. Auburn would be a big win for Arkansas, I think, especially the way their season has gone so far. I don't know. I just think that team has enough pieces where they can jump up and win a game. They've been kind of close in several games they shouldn't have been. Could have gone either way, but
it almost seems though like they might have a little bit of quit in them.
And they might, but you know what? They had a whole lot of quit last year, so you kind of got to work that out. So, this year I think he'll get him one. I don't think his record's going to be nearly as good as maybe I had predicted at the beginning of the year, but no, I'm not ready to get off that one.
Okay, I'm going to keep asking you every week.
Keep asking me. That's fine.
You want to talk about any other SEC games this week, David?
Florida and Missouri.
Florida, Missouri. Yeah, let's talk about the East.
Yeah.
Lots of weird things happening in the East right now.
So Missouri takes out Georgia last week in a huge game.
Raise your hand if you saw that one coming. Said no one in our pick ever.
Right.
So.
Well, and then, that's not even the headline coming out of that game. The headline is that they lose their quarterback, James Franklin, who looked amazing. We have given James Franklin a lot of heat on this show because he has not lived up to the hype previously, but he was looking good this year.
He was back to his form from maybe 2 years ago. People are making a lot out of that, but if you were watching that game, Missouri did not have the game in hand when he went out of the game.
No,
I mean they came back and won it without him.
They did.
So,
but
again,
can you do that against a Florida defense?
Can you do it every week? Too?
And not a freshman-laden Georgia
Right.
defense who was decimated by injury.
Yeah, that's a tough pick there. I mean, it's not at Florida, so that helps you. It doesn't necessarily help you because it's at Missouri. It's just, it's not a negative.
Well, and Missouri doesn't exactly have a huge home field advantage.
Right. I don't know, though. This is probably the week the Cinderella story runs out for Missouri, but at this point, the East is pretty much wide open.
It is, and Florida does not look like a automatic pick by any means.
Florida's not a good team either.
They're not.
I mean, their defense is good, but their offense is not there.
Their offense is not there. I thought Tyler Murphy being there would help. I think, to be honest, Matt Jones being completely out is going to help them, because I think that was a lot of the confusion with their offense. Mac Brown and Jones back and forth. Mm-hmm. You couldn't ever get a consistency in the running game. I actually like Mac Brown. I think he runs hard. I think he can read a hole a little bit better than the young Jones could right now. So I actually think that's going to help their offense a little. But if you're playing Missouri, you've got to score points.
Yeah, I don't know.
I took Florida, but
I think I would probably take Florida as well in that game. If you can tell, I haven't made my picks yet. That's probably where I'm going.
All right.
Georgia and Vanderbilt.
Yeah, that was
certainly another head scratcher there too.
It is, but Vandy's been so bad this year. I mean, do you really think they can? I'm typically a Vandy guy. I want Vandy to succeed, but a 28-51 loss to Missouri. You had trouble with UMass.
I think Georgia wins against Vanderbilt.
I do too.
Vanderbilt doesn't quite have the weapons.
Okay, well let me ask you a more interesting question. The point spread is 8.5 in favor of Georgia. If you're picking against the spread, you still think Georgia covers 8.5, or is it closer than that?
I think Georgia covers that.
Okay, I might take Vandy in that. To be honest with you, really? I think it might be one of those where Georgia fans are biting their nails at the end.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I'd probably still take Georgia there. Any chance Tennessee knocks off South Carolina at Tennessee?
No,
you don't think so? Not at all,
so.
Huh?
No, I think South Carolina found their identity last week. I think they're going to be pretty good for a while.
Okay, and we got LSU at Ole Miss.
You know what? LSU could slip up and make that a close game, but at the end of the game, I'm never betting against LSU. I mean, they're going to find a way to accidentally win that. They almost did it against Georgia.
Speaking of that, did you see Les Miles' rant about Columbus Day?
I did not see that.
Oh, it's fantastic, David.
Is this YouTube material?
You and the fellow listeners need to YouTube this. Les Miles... Of course, if you don't know anything about Christopher Columbus, I'll give you a little backstory here. Christopher Columbus...
This is going to be a history lesson.
He was an Italian who sailed under the Spanish flag.
Correct.
So, Les Miles gets up at his weekly press conference, like all the coaches do.
Which you never know what's going to go on.
No, you don't know. I mean, it was Columbus Day on Monday, and he gets up there and he says, to all you reporters out there... you Italians who are thinking about taking up masts under the Spanish colors, just hope you're having a great Columbus Day on this heralded holiday. It was nuts, man. It was crazy. And then, at the end of it, he just makes this Les Miles face, and you're not going to be able to see this. I'm going to do it only for David's benefit. It's like even he was confused about what he had just said, and then he just goes on, just starts talking football. Crazy.
I propose that instead of calling stuff he does crazy, we just call it
Lessian.
Lessian. I like it.
I mean, it was truly...
It was a true Lessian moment.
It was. And with that, we're going to allow you the chance to have your own Lessian moment.
Go out, find that video
briefly.
real quick, and come back.
Make it quick, because we'll be back very quickly here on the other side of outputting our coverage.
With a dream, my cardigan. Welcome to the land of fame excess. Am I gonna fit in? Jumped in the cab, here I am for the first time. Look to my right and I see the Hollywood sign. This is all so crazy. Everybody seems so famous. My tummy's turning and I'm feeling kinda homesick.
Oh, it's still so sad listening to that song. Just what could have been and what's not.
That's why when I have control of the board, I play it every week.
Yeah, it's just a sad story there. Although it's not that sad because I believe she is like number 1 in all of the record sales right now.
You know
So,
what? You can say
controversy
what you want to about her, but she knows what she's doing.
Yeah, she's not stupid, even though she looks stupid. Anyway, let's talk about the official Outputting Our Coverage Pick 10, David. Let's talk about where everybody stands here.
Okay.
Just because, I don't no particular reason why I want to talk about standings. But.
Well, just so happens that last week, Andy, Bruggernaut, and Boobs, and also Knickerbocker, all tied at 8-2 at the top of our pick.
Yeah, and a pretty tough week, as usual, last week.
It was a very tough week.
Some surprises there.
Antika got back to her normal form at 7-3. Saban, which last week was Saban dresses like a girl, is at 7-3. He's already changed it this week to Saban wears eyeliner like a girl.
Just really stepping their game up there.
It's just pretty impressive.
Really
Although
something.
The spelling of girl, not quite right, but we'll give him a pass.
Like
on
a
that.
grill.
Yeah. So Moobs kind of had a bad week at 7-3. I mean, that's a bad week for Moobs.
It is.
It's kind of moving down the board.
Rough there.
Doo-Doo River Craycraft 6-4, slowly moving up the board, a win at a time over Hillbilly Man and Rumpelfugly. So.
It's okay, David. We still believe in you, sort of.
Yeah, I'm making a comeback. Just wait till bowl season. The bowls are
a new day for everybody.
The bowls are my
Just
new day.
remember that's your saving grace.
They're my playoffs. So right now, currently in our total standings, I believe that we have a tie at the top. Moobs has caught Boobs.
How many different radio shows can you hear that on, David?
Probably 0. I mean, they're both tied at 56-14. Very, very respectable records. Actually, I take that. We've got a 1, 2, 3, 4 way tie for second place.
Yeah.
Bruggernaut, Saban wears eyeliner like a girl, Andy, and Big Dog all tied at 2 games back with 54 wins.
Yep. I'm looking for a wild card spot. Is what I'm looking for.
Antika right outside, only 2 games back at 7th, and then everybody else kind of jumbled in the middle. I am currently at 43-27. I am only 3 games back from being in the top 10. So I still feel good.
See, I feel like we should make a cut, like only the top 10 get into the bowl challenge.
No, that's not what's happening. So bowl challenge starts the season over, and we will have a new day.
Everybody's a winner in America. Here's your trophy.
That's correct. We will have 2 different trophies.
Okay. One's the Sacco, right?
One will definitely be the Sacco, and I will probably receive that one.
All right. Speaking of Pick 10, there's a couple pretty interesting games to talk about this weekend, David.
There are a lot of interesting games. Now, we touched on a couple in the SEC, but I think almost every game in this Pick 10 is tough.
Yeah.
I mean, this was a really tough week.
Yeah. The first one is really going to throw some people, I think. Oregon State at 5-1, playing at Cal 1-5. Cal's played a really tough schedule so far.
And they're also really bad, but I think this is the easiest game to pick so far. I'm Oregon State, and I think they cover
You don't think
the
there's
10
even
and
a
a half.
chance for Cal here?
No. Have you seen Oregon State play? Their offense is incredible.
But let me read to you who Cal has played so far.
Okay.
Northwestern.
Yep.
Tough game. They lost that. They won against Portland State, 37-30. Not very big win, but still a win.
Yeah.
Lost to Ohio State.
Right.
Lost to Oregon.
Right. That's respectable.
Lost to Washington State.
That's bad. By 22.
Washington State's a better team.
By 22. Cal is the worst team in the Pac-12.
Okay, they lost to UCLA. That's understandable.
Understandable. I got that.
I think there's a chance here for Cal.
Nope, I don't think so. Let's see.
I'm not saying they're going to win. I just think there might be a chance.
Yeah. Oregon State beat Utah, who recently beat Stanford, which is nice.
Okay.
They did lose to Eastern Washington, who is undefeated in the FDS, I think is what you call it. But, I mean, that kind of sucks. But it was their first game of the year. Really kind of looked impressive against Pac-12 opponents Colorado and Washington State. Just look at the head-to-head.
Yeah, I know.
Washington State, they beat 52-24.
Doesn't always mean everything.
Oregon State will win by 20.
I think Oregon State's going to win, but not by 20.
I'm going to put it down now. We'll talk about it next week. Okay. Oregon State's winning by 20.
Okay. I'm going to do my picks as we go here. This is actually a really good strategy.
This is going to be awesome.
Okay. We'll come back to the big one. Tomorrow night, you got to pass tonight in case you forgot to do your picks.
Well, really, you got to pass tonight since we're doing them now.
Well, that's why I didn't do them, because I knew it subconsciously.
That's what it was.
Tomorrow night, though, UCF and Louisville. Pretty intriguing game. UCF was kind of a media darling for a little while. They had that one big Thursday night game against
Akron.
against South Carolina. Wasn't
No,
it?
that was Saturday.
That was a Saturday game?
But it was Saturday early. They were like the
Okay.
only game
Yeah,
on.
I knew they kind of had a spotlight. And South Carolina struggled for a little while.
They only lost by 3.
Louisville struggling from a terrible schedule. I mean, they're winning the games they're supposed to, but they don't play anybody.
And they also didn't look really good last week against Rutgers.
No, I mean, they didn't look great, but they are at home. If you're a team like Louisville, you only have to get up for so many games.
Right.
I think that helps you here.
I think it does. I mean, I went ahead and took Louisville in this one, but let's put it this way. If I woke up Saturday morning and look at my phone and it says that UCF won a game against Louisville, I'm not going to be surprised.
I wouldn't either. Yeah, I mean, that would certainly make... if this were a playoff committee scenario, the committee would be like, come on, UCF win, so I don't have to worry about this later.
Right,
It'd be
because
like one of those scenarios.
At this point, we really don't know anything about Louisville.
Right.
I mean, they haven't played anybody to show us anything.
Right. Let's go to USC and Notre Dame. Normally a huge game. This year, neither of the teams are as good as they normally are.
But they're both 4-2. I mean, they're not terrible.
They're not terrible. Notre Dame has really flown under the radar this year.
It's because they barely win all their games.
Yeah, I mean, they're a Big Ten team at heart.
Yeah.
That's really what it comes down to.
I don't understand why they haven't joined them.
I love USC now with Ed Orgeron at the helm. I mean, it just makes me happy to think of Coach Yaya out there serving his linemen cookies and dancing around, ripping his shirt off.
Yeah.
That being said, they got the win against Arizona last week, which is good to kind of get things back on track. However, this one is at Notre Dame. Notre Dame lost to Oklahoma, who lost to Texas, which doesn't make you look very good at this point. But in all their other games, they've done what they typically do, and they find a way to win.
Yeah, at the end, and not very convincingly. I don't know. I took USC in this one. I really like the energy they got there. They've always had talent. I mean, even with Lane Kiffin, they had the talent there. I just don't think they wanted to play with the coach. So I'm taking USC. I think they can go in there and get a win.
I could see that potentially happening, but I still think it being at Notre Dame, you're still pretty limited with your roster there at USC. I'm going to take the Golden Domers.
Okay.
There in that one.
Different in that one.
UCLA and Stanford. Stanford just running the murderer's row here, really, week after week.
Very tough schedule.
Pac-12 teams. So far, they've survived well enough until last week when Utah kind of tripped them up. But
I think they're going to be exhausted when they get to Oregon, because you're looking at UCLA this week, at Oregon State next week, who really wants to run a high-octane offense, and then Oregon the next week?
Yeah.
Man, that's tough to ask.
That is tough. At this point, UCLA undefeated. I kind of felt like that was going to end against Utah. I made that Utah pick.
Right, which looks great now.
Yeah.
And they only lost by 7.
I think this is the week that UCLA loses, though. I'm going to go Stanford here.
I agree. I think Stanford bounces back. UCLA, to me, has been a figment out there. I don't think they're real, so we'll find out.
I can agree with that.
Although, if UCLA wins this game, I'm thinking Jim Mora might get offered the Texas or USC job. I don't think he's going to take the USC job, but I think he might take the Texas one when it opens up.
Yeah, you'd be dumb not to, really.
Really.
Okay, let's talk the big one now. Florida State and Clemson, the battle for ACC supremacy. Basically, whoever wins this one, unless they literally Clemson or Florida State themselves,
right?
They're going to be in the title game.
I think at this point it's
maybe
ACC themselves.
Maybe. And this is the point in time. David, how much time do we have before I go off on too much of a rant here?
We've got.
I got plenty of time for this. Okay, this is the point in the season where I start thinking about BCS doomsday scenarios. I just can't help it. It's what I do. So,
but it is already dying. So this would be the perfect year for it.
Yes. Okay.
Go out on a doomsday.
So it is a doom. I mean, the rocket is taking off at this point. It's ready to explode. I see a very real scenario this year of Oregon undefeated, either Florida State or Clemson undefeated, and a one-loss SEC champion. Chaos, David. Chaos.
It would
be what happens there, and it's real. I think that could happen.
It could. I think what hurts,
and Ohio State undefeated too. That could be there too.
I think what hurts an SEC team getting it, an SEC champion getting in, is that both the Pac-12 and the ACC now have championship games.
Right.
That really hurts. You used to be able to say, "Hey, SEC's playing this championship game. They have a true champion.
Right.
We can jump one of you. Well, now that both the other conferences have it, I don't think they could jump them.
Yeah.
If you have an undefeated Oregon and an undefeated Clemson, Florida State, then I think they both play each other for the national championship.
Let me go ahead and throw my theory out here, though, David. With this game, with Florida State and Clemson, truth be told, Jameis Winston has looked spectacular so far. I mean,
Making Alabama and Auburn fans just cringe.
But he's played Pitt, Nevada, Bethune-Cookman, Boston College, and Maryland.
Yep.
Nothing that great yet.
Right. Had to really dig in against Boston College.
Yeah. He's a freshman, David.
He is.
He's going to a pretty tough place to play.
Oh, yeah.
Clemson has a senior quarterback in Taj Boyd, a lot of playmakers, pretty good defense. I think Clemson wins this game.
I think here's your difference. You just said it. Clemson has a pretty good defense. Florida State has a really good defense.
Well,
I think that's going to be your difference. Jameis Winston has done a lot for this Florida State offense. I don't think he has to do a ton. I think that the running game will be fairly effective. I think if he can be efficient, not turn the ball over, he's not going to have to throw for the 5 touchdowns he threw against Maryland. If he throws for 2, no interceptions, no fumbles, maybe completes 70% of his passes, 60-70% of his passes, I think that would be enough for Florida State to get the win here. I think Clemson's defense is overrated. I think it chokes in big situations. I don't know. Clemson really kind of scared me with how they played against Boston College. I think they're a team that really lacks focus. You can see them get amped up for a quarter, but over the 4 quarters against a quality opponent, I don't see it. I'm going to take the Seminoles.
Okay. Yeah, it's going to be an interesting game. My scenario here, I think Clemson wins, but I still feel like they drop a game somewhere else.
Oh, I completely agree. I think Florida State could drop a game somewhere else.
I mean, Clemson's got to play South Carolina, of course.
All right, you take Clemson, game. I'm going to take Florida State, and you predict which game they drop.
Okay. Well, I think Clemson definitely drops South Carolina. It's at South Carolina. But they might drop one more. I think there's a potential that they could drop either Maryland or Georgia Tech.
Well, that's true. Yeah, I don't see Maryland so much. I think Maryland was another mirage. I think that they're going to be shown to be terrible as the year goes on. Florida State plays North Carolina State at home after this game. Then they play Miami at home, at Wake Forest, Syracuse, Idaho, and at Florida. I don't think the at Florida is going to be as challenging a game. I think Miami could trip them up.
Oh, yeah.
So
I agree.
I agree. But you know what? I'm going to go out in left field. I say they win the Miami and at Florida, and they pull a true Florida State, and they lose to Wake Forest. I think that's the game that they completely ignore.
Really? Wake Forest?
They come in flat. They can't get it together. They're down 10, and they just never can put it together. Anyway, that's prediction
pick there, David.
For whatever it's
You know what pick I'm waffling on right now?
Which one?
LSU Ole Miss, David. I don't know. I almost want to pull an upset there.
I think you want to do that deep down, maybe subconsciously, to make people take the Ole Miss win for Auburn more seriously?
No, I'm just thinking that Ole Miss has had a pretty tough run the past couple of weeks. Pretty tough teams. Maybe the law of averages gives them one here.
I don't know. I think they're still a year away.
Maybe not. I'm probably not going to do it, but I'm going to think about it.
All right. Well, let me know if you do it.
It's not a crime to think in this country yet.
It's not.
Yet.
Right, but you just thought and then shared.
I thought and shared, you're right.
Yeah, so there's a little difference.
I was really just trying to throw our listeners off on a bad scent. Really. That's what I was trying to do there.
Basically, you're telling them not to listen to our show until after they make their picks.
Yeah, pretty much.
We will try to subvert you as much as possible.
Pretty much what we're trying to do there. I guess that's about all the time we got, right, David?
Yeah.
We got to close it on up here. Lots of great games to watch this weekend. Auburn game's on at 2:30. Then, of course, you got the Alabama game that night. You got Florida State and Clemson night game as well. Plenty of good stuff to watch this weekend.
Oh, definitely.
I think we'll know a lot more about some of these teams, and we can really start making some informed opinions on all these teams after this weekend. That's what we got for you this week. David, any parting words of wisdom for our listeners?
Just enjoy the song while you can, because it's so brief.
It's legendary.
It is legendary.
That's what it is. We will be back, hopefully, next week on Outputting Our Coverage. Until then, enjoy some football.